It's all facts. Like I said, he's on the wrong side of the street. That's why he's calling out. Who's he calling out? Who's he calling out? All Heyman guys, right? I'm not going to ESPN at all. Because the big money fights and the fights that is really going to get made and the fights I'm really going to make is it with Showtime and Fox Sports. And Fox. He's talking about, oh, I got $3 million guaranteed. All right. You see 1.5 on paper, right? That's cool.
You know, they're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Next year, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of the show live on YouTube, 10 p.m. in the UK, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, and obviously in podcast form on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. It is review day because it's Monday. That means we're going to review Danny Garcia versus Shawn, Amir versus Vargas, UFC 228, Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till. So much action this weekend, and of course we had to have breaking news right before show. It is MCR tradition. Every time we go on air, there's breaking news mere hours beforehand. And of course, Manny Pacquiao now coming out saying that he will take legal action against Bob Arum, Top Rank, and ESPN. So just a lot to get to. Hit that like button, share the show. Subscribe, patreon.com/MixedCombatRadio to help support the channel. I am Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Hipsters here, haters beware. It is time to talk some boxing, talk some MMA, and obviously call in 323-870-4051 and press 1 to get in the queue. If you are international, email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com, and I can get you an international call-in link that is absolutely free. Quickly, shout out to everyone in the chat, Bayside Boxing, Aaron Munoz, Louie, of course, obviously our pound-for-pound supporters as well, such as Rick, Nigel, Kyle, Rob, and everyone else, Castle Gill, everyone else that supports the show on Patreon. It's going to be a fun show because obviously there's a lot to discuss. And I honestly want to get the Manny Pacquiao thing out of the way before we discuss the actual fights of the weekend. Because to be honest, that's really the only news of the day is the Manny Pacquiao situation. Everything else is still talking about the fights. So let's get into that. I mean, breaking news topic, if there is one. Manny Pacquiao is saying that he's had enough, apparently. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see right now. Let's get the dramatic music out. Yeah, you know what time it is. Dramatic reading time by Matt. Yes. Manny Pacquiao on Instagram. I love that Manny Pacquiao is going to IG recently, by the way. I hope people have been noticing that Manny Pacquiao is deciding to spill all of his tea on IG now. Anyways, it's funny to me. But Manny Pacquiao saying congratulations and good luck to Top Rank Boxing and ESPN on your 7-year partnership agreement. I know both of you have been very busy finalizing the deal. However, whenever you hear that however, man, you know it's not good, right? However, I have not received the U.S. rights payment for my July 15th fight against Lucas Matisse that was broadcast on ESPN+. It's not good. Therefore, I am initiating legal proceedings. Oh no. Against Top Rank and all other parties based on the non-payment and attempt to restrict my future rights. Thank you. Oh, the thank you. I love that, by the way. The fact that he was like, at the very end, thank you, which is, in legalese is a fuck you. So I like that. I like that. Salute to you, Manny Pacquiao. Get your shots off, man. Where to really break this down? There's so many ways to tackle this and to look at it. If this is true, and there's really no reason why to believe it's not true, but then also makes a little sense as to why they didn't pay him. It just seems odd. It seems very odd to put it lightly. Manny Pacquiao and his split from basically every institution that he belonged to at one point, whether it be his trainer, his promoter, his network, it's all gone. Like, Manny Pacquiao was the HBO Top Rank fighter for, a decade? And now he's off on his own, not getting paid by Bob Arum, not getting paid by ESPN. Eddie Hearn's liking this Instagram post, which is, by the way, just by itself. We're going to table that for a second, discuss that in a minute. But Manny Pacquiao now, in all intents and purposes, suing Bob Arum and ESPN and Top Rank. It's fascinating to me, and I'm here for all the drama, all the beef, all the tea being spilled. I'm here for it all. I am. Do I think he has a case? I have no idea. This is all very new. It's all very interesting to me. Definitely leave a comment below. Call in 323-870-4051. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings about Manny Pacquiao suing his longtime promoter and promotional company, Top Rank, and Bob Arum, and obviously the network that they are now affiliated with, ESPN, for not paying him for the Lucas Matisse fight for their obvious U.S. distribution rights. And definitely going to be some more drama heading forward, I feel like. This is just getting started, in my opinion. Knowing Bob Arum and how Top Rank gets down in legal disputes, this is going to be one that's going to take a little bit. It's going to be one that takes a while. But definitely cannot wait to see what happens next. And now, to bring on top of that, obviously, Eddie Hearn, being Eddie Hearn, saying,
"Are you off your tits? Have you been smoking something?"
Bob Arum to let Manny Pacquiao get away, even though I know maybe us hardcores don't care about Manny Pacquiao anymore. He is still Manny Pacquiao. He still draws to the casual fan base still has a huge foothold in, obviously, the Filipino-American market, and obviously, I would say still the Mexican-American market as well. So Eddie Hearn now liking this post, and obviously him being in talks with Manny Pacquiao's advisor, Michael Kuntz, I believe. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Again, does Manny Pacquiao go to DAZN and Eddie Hearn in Matchroom? Does he just go back to the Philippines and Asia and run his own thing? I don't know. But Manny Pacquiao and the old paradigm we knew him as the top-ranked fighter, Bob Arum fighter, Mr. Company Man, Freddie Roach there in the corner, that is all gone. Every single part of it is gone. Bayside Boxing with Matt Sass talk about the live numbers on Facebook for DAZN. No, because I didn't watch it on Facebook. I watched it on Periscope. But anyways, I didn't see the numbers, Bayside, so let me know the numbers. And again, concurrent live numbers doesn't mean much. What's the total viewership? Because if it's in the millions, then who gives a fuck? Digressing, because obviously that we're going to get to Amir Khan and Vargas later. But yes, Manny Pacquiao. Does he go to Eddie Hearn? How will this lawsuit, go with Bob Arum and Top Rank? It's going to be interesting to see. Definitely leave a comment below. Let's move over to, obviously, the fights of the weekend. I'm going to start with the Danny Garcia versus Shawn Porter fight. A fight that I think is getting viewed in a real diametrically different way in the fan bases. Bayside, that's not a statistic. Give me a statistic here, man. Danny Garcia versus Shawn Porter, to me, was not a close fight. I've watched it now several times. Shawn Porter clearly wins this fight. And I would say clearly wins it in like 8-4 fashion. Like, I think the 116-112 scorecard was exactly right. I know that was kind of looked at weird by the commentary team and others in the media. No, that was the right scorecard. Even though Danny Garcia was maybe the more accurate puncher in there, he still got out-hustled, out-thrown. You know, he got outlanded by Shawn Porter. Like, Shawn Porter was better in almost every conceivable way than Danny Garcia, other than accuracy. And even then, you know, I talked about this on the Championship Rounds podcast yesterday on patreon.com/mixonmyradio with one of our callers, one of our Patreon members, Fugatti. You know, you can land, let's say, 4 out of 5 punches around. So obviously your punch stat percentage is really high. That's why Danny had such a high power punch percentage on CompuBox. But guess what? A, that doesn't count for scoring a round. And B, that lacks complete context to the fight. Because again, let's say you land 4 out of 5 punches or 2 out of 4, right? Because 49%, 2 out of 4 of your power punches landed. But let's say Shawn Porter landed 5 out of 15. Lower percentage, but he landed more power punches. You know, so all these people wanting to bring up statistics to support their argument for scoring a fight, I think you fundamentally misunderstand what CompuBox is, how to score a fight, and you need to start maybe educating yourself on that. And maybe I need to educate you. I don't know. Maybe I'm not the best one to do that, knowing my demeanor. But it's just, there are people out there, fans that watch the sport for years now, and they still don't understand this concept. Okay, so stop looking at the punch stats. Okay, and honestly, the Showtime commentary team was biased as hell towards Danny Garcia, which is fine. I get it. They saw a much closer fight. Steve Forward scored it a draw. I think that's fucking ridiculous. And again, Steve Forward is actually one of the better guys about that. You know, I talked about this with Santiago on the live fight chat on Saturday. You know, compared to like the Harold Letterman of the worlds, Steve Forward is usually far and away better than that guy, and better than the industry standard. And he's usually pretty objective. That was not the case here. I think they were discounting a lot of Shawn Porter's body work. It may not be the cleanest work, but it is still work. You know, shots that land on the body the way Shawn Porter throws them, they affect Danny Garcia. There's a reason Danny Garcia did not have a high output in this fight, because he couldn't. And also, on top of that, to actually break down the fight maybe more specifically, Shawn Porter, his game plan was just perfect. His in and out movement, his sense, and I'm actually going to get to this point in the UFC main event later. He had the perfect idea, or I should say game plan, on how to deal with the distance of Danny Garcia. A guy that wants to work in the mid-range a little bit, wants to sort of, go tit for tat for you until he can time you, right? Get your timing down, get the speed down. Shawn Porter never allowed Danny to set his own rhythm and set his timing down. Either Shawn Porter was completely on the outside of the range of Danny Garcia, or completely on the inside, smothering Danny Garcia. And to Shawn's credit, he was very effective on the inside. I know people want to say he smothers his work a lot, but his work actually on the inside was highly efficient, in my opinion. It did exactly what he wanted to do. Again, he knows he's not going to land every punch. His game plan and his style is not predicated on that. His style is predicated on overwhelming your stimulus, overwhelming your brain to where you cannot actually put up a counter offense, which Danny could not. Danny, even when he would try to sort of put up any sort of, counter offense to what Shawn was doing, he would throw in ones and twos. He was never able to throw in combination. The athleticism, the speed, the quickness, both laterally and just, the explosion in and out of Shawn Porter was just too much for Danny Garcia. It clearly was. Like, Shawn Porter was better in almost every conceivable way. And this idea of accuracy that Danny Garcia was just more accurate did not mean he won. It just does not. And CompuBox is not used to score rounds, people. I'm sorry. Look at the unified rules of boxing. This is not hard. Now, where does Shawn Porter go from here? Interesting. Shawn Porter was on TBV last night. Not Shawn. Ken Porter, his dad and trainer, said that Shawn is now a free agent. Alluded to a big-time promoter, pick him up. Said it wasn't Eddie. Did not deny it was Bob. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Can Shawn Porter... imagine if Shawn Porter is the first one to just go over and fight Crawford. That'd be interesting. If you're Bob Arum, why wouldn't you try to poach a Shawn Porter type? Because Shawn Porter, even though I think he will give Crawford some work, like that would be a tough fight for Crawford, I still think Porter's defensive flaws, are tailor-made for a guy like Crawford, to be honest. So you can get a lot of legitimacy to a guy like Terrence Crawford if you beat Shawn Porter. And to be honest, Shawn Porter is an easier fight than Errol Spence for Terrence Crawford, in my opinion. So if you're Shawn, you have options right now. You really do. There's the Keith Thurman option out there. If he wants, he's not going to want it. So let's throw it out there. Ugas obviously won, and we're not going to really talk about his fight. He was, I don't think there's really much to talk about with his fight. It's the same Ugas fight we've seen for 3 or 4 years now. I don't think Shawn is interested in that, to be quite honest. That's not a big money fight. It makes no sense. So it's really Crawford and Spence. And now with the idea or the rumor that now Bob Arum has approached Ken and Shawn about fighting Crawford, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see who can sort of get this unification first. Because Shawn Porter, even though he may not be the star of PBC, he may not be one of those big names and big draws, he is, like I said, he adds legitimacy to your resume and your value as a fighter. Keith Thurman beating Shawn Porter meant something. It did. Kell Brook beating Shawn Porter meant something. If Danny had beat Shawn Porter, it would have meant a lot. It would have solidified a lot of Danny Garcia's fans. It would have, I think, sort of pushed back on a lot of the hate Danny gets, and he didn't. He lost. So Shawn is really that guy. If you beat him, you are in another stratosphere. So if Crawford is to beat him or Spence is to beat him, that really shows that they are in another stratosphere, in my opinion. Can't wait to see what's next. Shawn Porter looked fantastic. Probably his career best performance, in my opinion. Again, perfect game plan, perfect execution of that game plan. And plus, God, that explosive athleticism is just insane. Added with the cardio, it's really unmatched and unparalleled in boxing right now in 2018. I don't think there's a guy on this planet that has the cardio and athleticism as Shawn Porter in boxing. I just don't, to be honest. I don't see it. Maybe there's someone out there. Definitely call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. I think Gary from Dallas is called in to press 1. We're gonna get to you, Gary, in a second after I briefly talk about the Amir Khan fight, and then go to you. But yeah, fantastic performance from Shawn Porter. Not much else to say. Danny Garcia, I still think he is a relevant player in this division. Like Danny Garcia versus Adrian Broner or Lamont Peterson in a rematch. Hell, Jeff Horn. Those fights out there, bring back Sammy Vasquez from the grave. Luis Collazo. Hell, Danny Garcia versus Luis Collazo in the Barclays Center. Why not? Why not do that? There are options out there to sort of bounce Danny back to this level, in my opinion. And plus, he is still probably one of the better or overall bigger names in this welterweight picture, so he can still get big money fights. So let's see what happens with Danny. I don't think he should retire or anything like that. I know he talked about that with the Keith Thurman fight. I hope he doesn't talk about that here because he is still a quality fighter. He just needs to fix his game a little bit. He needs to fine-tune it. He really desperately needs another pair of eyes in there for training. He really does. I think Angel, even though I think he's done a good job, has done as best as he can. He has taught Danny the most he can teach him. And now I think somebody else needs to come in and teach Danny Garcia. Just my honest opinion. I know that probably would never happen. Just throwing it out there as a fantasy, hope for Danny Garcia that I think would really rejuvenate his career. That's just not the case, I think, to be honest. Like I said, Ordonez Ugas won the card against Cesar Brenuevo. Not much to say. Ugas just battered him with the right hand of the body, and that's basically all it was. Amanda Serrano picked up a really good win against Yamil Reneso. Back and forth fight. Fun action right there. And Adam Manaki beating Charles Martin in one of those like sloppy heavyweight fun fights that, obviously it's one of those you have to sort of take it for what it is. Like there's not much technique, not much athleticism, not much elite boxing going on with Manaki versus Charles Martin. But it was fun. It was entertaining. Winowski definitely, I think, deserving of maybe like a Derek Chisora fight, something along that line. Charles Martin, though, similar to, I think, Danny Garcia, but obviously in the same league, I think showed a good performance, even in a losing affair. Like, I would be interested in seeing a Charles Martin, fight again. I know Amir Mansour lost against, I forget his name. I don't have it up this weekend. Lost via third round KO. Put Amir Mansour versus Charles Martin on some undercard on PBC. I'm good with it. I'm interested in it enough. I may not watch it, but just saying. The Charles Martin is definitely, I think, still a top 30 heavyweight, and you can still make money being a top 30 heavyweight. Chris Colbert picking up another win on the card as well. And the last fight we really talk about is Marcellus Wilder, obviously the brother of Deontay Wilder. Good guy, pick up his second professional win, winning in the first round via TKO. It's going to be interesting to see what his career pans out to be. Dwayne in the chat saying Danny took that loss really bad. Yeah, he did. He looked like he was really emotional about this loss. More so than like the Thurman fight. Like Thurman, he looked more like aggravated, like almost irritated. With this one, he looked like almost legitimately bummed out. It's going to be interesting to see how he can bounce back. Because again, like Dwayne says, he needs to throw his hands more. He does. And I think that's a coaching issue. That is a training issue, in my opinion. Let's move over to the Amir Khan card before we head over to Gary in Dallas, and then over to, obviously, more boxing topics and, obviously, our UFC 228 card as well. Amir Khan versus Samuel Vargas. God, there's not much to say here that's positive. Amir Khan had a average performance against a average opponent, got knocked down in the second round. Looked a little bit chubby, it didn't look like he was in shape. The defensive flaws and just mistakes he continually makes is just, it's become so obvious now that every time he rolls out, the pocket and lowers his hands, I'm like, okay, here's going to come. It's going to come right here. There's a left hand or right hook, whatever it's going to be, whichever way he's rolling out. He's going to get caught. He's going to go down. And it happened. Obviously, he still won the fight. Samuel Vargas is not skilled enough to contend even with this version of Amir Khan. But Amir Khan versus Kell Brook or Manny Pacquiao, which is really what's been talked about. I mean, I'm interested. Like, I'll watch it, but I'm a degenerate. Like, I watch everything. Though I didn't watch the HBO card. I'll be honest. We're not going to review the HBO card. I haven't watched it yet. I'll watch it later. Don't worry. Gunshots at me. I know. I know. There's just a lot going on, on Saturday. I apologize. But yeah, for Amir Khan, there's not much I'm really interested in, to be honest. But I'll still watch it. I'll still pay attention. The Manny Pacquiao fight, to me, is really the only one that makes the most sense. Kell Brook, to me, would be a slaughter, to be quite honest. And speaking of slaughters, the other fight I'm going to talk about in this card, I won't talk about the Lewis Ritson, Gamel Yaffe fights, because I'll be honest, I did not see him yet. So I really don't have much to say about it yet. Lewis Ritson picking up a KO, so is Gamel Yaffe. Two really good prospects. I'm interested to see what they go next. But Sam Eggington losing to Hassan Wakano. Wow. What a performance, man. Sam Eggington obviously was thought about to fight, Brandon Rios on the AJ Povetkin undercard. This was supposed to be a tune-up showcase, right? And Wakano coming in here from Tanzania and whooping Sam Eggington's ass in the second round. There's not much to say here, really. Like, he just came in here, did not respect Sam Eggington at all. started throwing hands, connecting with mean hooks. And to Sam Agassim's credit, he's a tough, durable fucker, so he took a bunch of shots and he got beat up in the process. But we have a new sort of, not player, because obviously, he's 11-2. I'm curious. I'm going to go back and do a little more research on Volcano. But that type of performance, yeah, people are going to notice. People are definitely going to notice. Against that opponent, yeah. I don't know if he's an Ndongo or a Kome-like or Isaac Dogbe. I don't know what the ceiling is for Volcano, but he showed out in this fight. Amazing performance. Salute to him. And something that I'm going to touch on later, obviously, as well when we get to the UFC card, but African combat sports is really having like a renaissance right now, Obviously, you have like the Dick Tiger, Azuma Nelson days, but right now, when you look through the list of whether it be high-level UFC fighters that are from Africa, high-level MMA, boxers that are from Africa, there is a litany of them. I cannot wait to see what's next, because really, in my opinion, combat sports is generational, right? So when you have like for the UK, for example, you have the Lennox Lewis, Frank Bruno, boom, right? I think a direct result of that is the AJs in this era, right? You have a bunch of these kids, probably, not kids, but fighters that when they were kids in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were watching the Frank Brunos and the Nigel Benns and the Chris Eubank and the Lennox Lewises of the world and getting inspired and then wanting to go fight. I think this generation of African fighters will hopefully do that same thing for that continent. That, the next, 10 years after this, 15 years after this, we're going to see another, maybe even bigger generation come in from that continent. Because insane talent right now. When really there's no amateur system there for either boxing and not necessarily for boxing, but for combat sports overall. Like there's not a big regional scene there from my knowledge and my understanding of it. So to see all this high-level talent all of a sudden spring up, it's going to be interesting in about 20 years from now. Like, watch. I know that's obviously a long-term prediction. 20 years from now when you start listening to MCR, and I tell you, I was right, motherfucker, when there's 40 guys coming out from Africa just whooping on people all over the world. I'm going to tell you I told you so. But Volcano, obviously Isaac Dogbe, Kome, Jose Ndongo, people I've talked about, obviously, in boxing, and then obviously in the UFC, like Francis Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, and obviously fighters I'm going to talk about on the UFC 228 card as well. But we're calling over to Sam Agassim. Fantastic performance. New player at 154 pounds. Cannot wait to see what's next for him. We're going to go over to Dallas, as I do believe this is Gary from Dallas. Long-time TBV listener. Gary, please tell me I am right, or whoever this is, and tell me that you are Gary.
This is Gary from Dallas. How's it going, Matt?
Yes. What's up, Gary? How you doing?
How you in there, man? You're doing good work. Sounds good.
Thank you, man.
I just want, because I've heard so many people say that Garcia got robbed and this and that. And I'm just, thank you for being the voice of reason here. I thought Porter clearly outworked him. I could see it being 6-6, but I had 8-4. How did you have it scored for Porter?
8-4. I have it 8-4.
Okay. I had an 8-4 too. I could see getting to 6-6, but it's like one of those things where you're like, I'm going to give the close rounds to Danny. But I've been hearing other people say 7-5 and 8-4 Danny. And I was like, I can't see that. Like, I mean, there were some close rounds, but Porter was the aggressor. Porter outworked him. Porter clearly won. Like, when they read that off the scorecards, I was like, yeah, that sounds all about right. 116, 112, and 115, 113. So I'm hearing, and I don't know if it's just Danny fanboys, because Danny does have a big following, but, like, don't you think the judges got it exactly right? I mean, I don't see why there would be any controversy.
Yeah, and honestly, when I first heard the scorecards, I thought maybe, like, the 115 scorecards were too close. Because when I saw it live, I had it actually much wider to Shawn. I had it more towards, like, the 9-3, 10-2 range. I thought he really outclassed Danny in this fight. And when I watched it again, I saw that, Danny was able to get, some better shots here and there. Shawn, in certain rounds, was not as effective, but it clearly was an 8-4 fight to me. Like, I do not see any argument that is legitimate for Danny winning the fight, or even a draw. I really don't see it. You really have to discount everything Shawn does. You have to hate his style, and I'm not that guy.
I watched it with a couple of friends, and everyone had either 8-4 or 7-5 quarter. And Showtime, which you're right, it seemed like Showtime was cheering for Danny, had it 6-6. So even Danny's cheerleaders had it a draw. So how everyone is scoring it for, or a bunch of people I've spoken to had it for Garcia. I mean, you had to try to want to score it for Danny if you had it for Garcia. You had to say every single competitive round, I'm just going to score for Danny. And then I'll give him 1 or 2 other rounds, right? Because if you give every close round to Danny, then it's 6-6, like Showtime did. To score it for Danny, now you had to give him rounds he clearly lost, too, at least 1 or 2. So, yeah, I'm just glad that you're the voice of reason on that. And I know you said that you didn't watch the 115-pounders on HBO.
How was it?
But go back and listen to them. The main event was a watch. But the first 2 fights were really good. The McWilliams Arroyo fight with Ioka, then the Palikte fight with Nietes was a good scrap. And it was really close. And I'm not going to tell you how I had it scored. I'm just going to tell you I thought it was competitive. I like when you go back and watch it, tell me how you had it scored.
Okay.
Because it was a real contrast in styles. I think I was expecting to hear wide variance with scorecards, and you got that. So I'm not going to tell you how I score. I just want to know how you had it when you do watch it.
I will definitely watch that card and review it tomorrow. I would definitely do that.
All right. That's all I got today, Matt. Keep up the good work, man.
Thank you, Gary. I hope you have a good one, man. Santiago has pressed 1. Santiago, I am going to go to you. And obviously, Santiago, if you want to get in again for the UFC topics, press 1 to get out of the queue, press 1 to get back in. You know that stuff. You're a pro. Santiago, what is that, man?
Not much. Just here working, but found a little bit of time to call in and basically give you my opinion on the review of the weekend. I didn't really get to pay attention too much to the main event, considering where my attention lies. But shout out to Woodley winning and showing that even at his age, he's still got a little bit more in the tank. You're the one that pointed out that if right now if he were to make a drop off with physicality, it would be this fight, and he still looks pretty sharp. So kudos to him. But main event, Shawn Porter versus Danny Garcia. It's funny because I also had a pretty wide margin when I watched it live, but I was also looking at it from okay, let's see what these guys would be willing to do it in a close matter. And I told you 7-5, and you're like, no way. And then you hear that one of the different times it's 7-5, and I'm like, I told you. And it's not like these were wash rounds either. Like these were close rounds, but I always felt that as the round came to an end, Porter was the one who was asserting himself more compared to Danny, and it's not like Danny wasn't putting work in. He was in the fight, but the slow start, the fact that he's more picky with his punches compared to Porter really didn't help him. And the fact that Porter stuck to his game plan, stayed on the outside, and made Garcia come to him most of the fight really played into his favor. So kudos to him on the win, and I look forward to seeing what he has in store for the rest of his career after he gets past his mandatories.
Is that it, Santiago?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I really do have to say. Like the other fights, what more could you say? Ugas looked like a one-on bandit most of his fight. And as a heavyweight, I like the Kowalski-Martin fight, but it was a sloppy affair to say the least. And, we'll see where they go from here at this point. So unless you have any other specific questions, that's my call, and I'm going to get straight back to work.
All right, thank you, Santiago, as you are driving with the windows down, I think. With your AC broken. Shout out to LA in the summer. But digressing, obviously, briefly talk about the Superfly event in a macro sense. Because I didn't see the fights. I didn't see them. I'm not going to talk about the fights individually. But per Tom Loffer, Peter Nelson is doubling down or tripling down on or quadrupling down now because there's going to be Superfly 4 is the next one for next year, 2019, same time as when the second one was, February, March. And I think they're going to do like a seasonal thing or a bi-yearly thing with this event. I'm glad that obviously a network is caring about this division, wanting to put on fights for it. However, I kind of see it as it's limiting this event because it is on HBO now. Like, I can't believe I'm saying that in 2018, but I am. The fact that this event is on HBO limits it. It does. Alvarez, Sergey Kovalev, most likely not going to be on HBO. So the entire HBO schedule for the next 12 months is next week Canelo Triple G, and then Superfly 3. That is it. Those are the only cards on the deck right now. And obviously maybe Triple G is going to get HBO fights, etc. But right now, it doesn't look that way, to be quite honest, in terms of just HBO moving along as a preeminent network in this sport. So, even though HBO is a big network in of itself, it seems like this event is so within a bubble of itself because no one cares about HBO in the sport. Like this to me is, what's a good analog to this? Maybe, let's say you want to, like the Hard Knocks show for the NFL, right? Maybe a very geographic specific one. So our fans in the UK and listeners in the UK, I do apologize if this one doesn't make sense to you. Hard Knocks is a documentary for the NFL, right? So let's say it's on the channel with all football content. Makes sense, right? Then you take away from a network that doesn't have football content. Doesn't make sense anymore. Similar to the Contender. Perfect one. There we go. That's probably a better one because that's still boxing. The Contender. It's a series that we all want to watch. But it's on a network that we don't care about. And most of us don't have. And let's be honest, in the last 2 years, I've known a ton of people that have cut off the HBO subscription. A ton of boxing fans have said, you know what, like HBO just doesn't deliver it for me anymore. Like I may watch the Canelo fights on pay-per-view anyways. Like it's not HBO. So similar to the Contender, Superfly is on a network that no one has any real emotional attachment to. People are now cutting for this sport. It's just going to be, it is what it is, unfortunately. It truly is. Again, I think it's awesome that a network is showcasing these guys. I think it's just the wrong network. I think Superfly or guys like these deserve to be on like a ESPN Plus, a DAZN. They need to be on a streaming app, to be honest. Why? Because these fights shouldn't be at the Forum. These fights need to be in Japan, in Thailand, in South America, Central America, and stream them motherfuckers. Like that's the beauty of ESPN Plus and DAZN and stuff like that. That's how you do it, in my opinion. But obviously, most of the fighters attached to this card are affiliated with K2. K2 is still very affiliated with HBO, so it's doubtful to see any real shift in this model to really appease, I think, us fans that are really over HBO. Like, Gary, calling and telling me to watch this event. And telling me to actually listen to it. I am dreading to listen to Jim Lampley and Roy Jones and Max Kellerman for 3 hours. I hate that broadcast. And it's only gotten worse. Honestly, like they've lost a step. They're a little bit rusty every time they get together again. Get the band back together. It just doesn't have that pedigree, that prestige that it once had. Showtime has taken that. It has. And ESPN is a much better overall network with better fights. And obviously DAZN is looking like it's going to be a real nice streaming app. I mean, every visual we've seen of the interface and everything like that looks amazing. It looks really beautiful. Main event Marcin Eggington got owned by that Tanzanian champ. Yeah, he did. That was beautiful. That was insane. But moving on, Superfly, again, I'm going to watch the event, review it tomorrow. But Superfly 4, the next one, February, March, HBO. That's seemingly what's on the table. Moving on, what do I have? Oh, we're going to briefly talk. Obviously, if you listen to the very beginning of the show, you heard the sound clip of Earl Spence talking about Terrence Crawford and such. And these two guys have gone back and forth on social media. I'm not going to read it all. I've debated it a lot on social media this weekend. I'm over it. If you are very opinionated about Spence Crawford, call in. Please call in. 323-870-4051. Both these guys are network free agents. As far as I know, Spence does not have a promotional contract with anyone. Crawford does, but that's not going to be a hurdle for this fight at all. So now we have business ego getting in the way of big fights. We've heard this story a lot this year. 2018 has been the story of big fights we want not happening. Joshua Wilder, Spence Crawford, Lomachenko Mikey. The list can go on and on of these big fights that seem to be getting pushed off due to business ego. And it happens every time now, honestly, in the last, 30, 40 years, it seems. It's unfortunate. It is really unfortunate, in my opinion. I think Earl Spence should have no issue fighting on ESPN. But he says he's not going to fight on ESPN. Terrence Crawford should tell Bob Arum, stop saying to the media that we're not making this fight, that we're pushing it back till it's pay-per-view. Stop saying that. I don't give a fuck if it's pay-per-view. I don't care if this fight's on ESPN Plus, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN University, Showtime Anytime, Showtime Extreme. I don't care. Make the fight. I want to hear that talk from both these guys. And I'm not really hearing that, to be quite honest. And even from Crawford, I'm not hearing that enough. I heard him, say maybe a few weeks back, bringing up the idea of why don't we just have the networks put up money, whoever has the most money, we go to that network, which is fine, but you double down on that, triple down on that, push that topic. Tell Spence, hey, look, man, we're going to offer you this much money. Mention figures. Say, hey, we're going to split a $30 million pot, $20 million pot, whatever it is, I don't care. Mention something. You got to. Same with Spence. Otherwise, it seems like you don't want to fight each other for business reasons. Spence is thinking, well, it's just easier to fight Shawn Porter. That's unification. I'm still going to make millions off of that. Terrence Crawford's still going to make at least $1 million off of Jose Benavidez, let's be honest. Is he content with that? Yeah, he's probably content with that. Same with Spence probably being content with Shawn Porter. And obviously, those aren't equal fights for their next respective opponents, but we will all probably agree that we don't want to see those fights. We would rather see these guys fight each other than fight those fights. And it's just not the case. It isn't. In a perfect world, if these guys were not going to fight each other, then Spence versus Porter, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But then it would have to be like Crawford versus Pacquiao. It would have to be that next. And obviously with Pacquiao now suing Top Rank in ESPN, that is never going to happen. Never. Manny Pacquiao versus Terrence Crawford is never going to happen now. I most likely blame Manny Pacquiao for that, but that's a whole other topic. But that's not the best world we live in right now. We live in the real world where Spence is probably going to fight Mike Garcia. Terrence Crawford's fighting Jose Benavidez. While they're talking about who owns the block. I don't care about who owns the block. I don't. Obviously, neither of you do, because you're arguing about it. If you owned it, it wouldn't be an argument. It's ridiculous. Main event, Mark saying, why Spence get in the ring and respectfully ask Porter for unification and then start shit with Bud on the side. Alcohol for obvious reasons. Like I don't want to go down like this road because again, I don't care if a guy drinks. Like fighters can drink. Like Roberto Duran, Jake LaMotta, like all these guys smoke cigars, drank scotch, and fuck people up for decades. So I don't really care about that. But that's why. I think that's why Spence, well, maybe in the ring, was a little more composed. By the time he got to the post-fight press conference, maybe he had a couple more shots. Maybe a couple more cocktails with Adrian Broner and all his buddies. Because they were all hanging out. Him, Broner, Robert Easter, Zab Judah was there. Andre Berto, I think, was like hanging out with them as well. Obviously, the Charlos, Jared Hurd. Like, they were all getting along, having a good time. So I'm not going to really, like, say, like, oh, I forget who said it on Twitter, but somebody was like, I like my champs who don't, like, drink at fights. I don't care. I really do not care. Main event, Mark saying he was lit. Oh, have you not seen the video? Oh, now you guys are going to force me to do this. I didn't want to do this, guys. I didn't want to show this video and be that guy. But it's pretty funny, I have to admit. Where's the video? Give me a second. Give me a second, fam. I will find it. I promise you I will find it. Hopefully, like, somebody can call in and talk for a second. Santiago, if you're free, press 1 to get out of the queue. Press 1 to get back in so I know you want to call in. I'm trying to find this video. Oh, never mind. Never mind. I found it. Oh, this is some good stuff right here, man. Okay. And again, this is fun to me. Like, I don't think this is a big, like, I don't care that he's doing this. But to answer your question as to why he was probably more politeful to Shawn Porter in the ring and not Terrence Crawford, because he had some alcohol in the system. And that's just obvious. It's not really for a dispute, and this is definite video evidence for it.
Look, I started fighting in 2015. In 2015, I started fighting in 2015. He beat me in 2016. I was year fighting. Nobody beat you in 2016, bro. Was in the amateurs. He did. That's when he had his braids. When he cut his braids. No, he beat me in 2000. No, I started fighting in 2015. He beat me in 2017. It was 2 years. He started fighting me 2 years in boxing. I started fighting when I was 15 years old. Oh, 15. I started fighting when I was 15 years old. I was born in 1990. 2015, I was 15 years old. He beat me in 2007. Okay.
Yeah, so I was born in 1990, and in 2015, I was 15 years old. Now, obviously, he was just drunk and was fucking up, right? Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't care. But that's why he was talking shit on Bud. You know, he got that liquid courage in it, man. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious, man. And again, I think the people saying that, this shows that he's going to lose to Terrence Crawford, who's always sober in Vegas. No, I don't believe that, but it's just funny to me. And everyone in the chat saying he has to stay away from Broner. Yeah, he does. You can definitely tell that Broner is just a really bad influence on all these guys. And to be fair, like, again, if this is just them at the fights having a good time, they're all out of camp, I think. Like, it's not a big deal. Again, it's harmful fun. But yeah, Broner, everyone's really hard. No one's happy with Broner in the chat. I agree. But yeah, that's why, to answer your question, he wanted to talk some shit about Terrence Crawford. But yeah, that's about it. Let's get to obviously the UFC event. So again, call in 323-870-4051 if you want to talk about the UFC 228 Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till event. I mean, from top to bottom, probably one of the events of the year, to be quite honest. Like, so many great knockouts and finishes in this event that, man, I just cannot wait. Cannot wait to break this one down. Let me start from the bottom to the top, to be quite honest, because there's a lot to discuss here. Ari Aldana versus Lucy Padova. Fight of the night, by the way, one fight of the night. Great back and forth affair. Aldana won via split decision. Just the bigger, better overall fighter in there. Better striking, better grappling. Not really much for me in terms to break it down. Also, I really don't have. It's not really on my mind that much, to be quite honest. Jim Miller versus Alex White. Jim Miller, salute to him, man, because A guy that I counted out in this fight, and we're going to talk about that, obviously, Diego Sanchez as well. You know, he has 30-something fights in the UFC. He has the most fights in the UFC, I believe. He's definitely past his prime, but to come out here, hurt Alex White, then lock up that rear naked choke, it was a thing of beauty. It was that prime Jim Miller from back in, 2010, 2011, that he was running through lightweights. So salute to Jim Miller, man, because that guy's awesome, man. That guy's fantastic. Diego Sanchez defeating Craig White. Salute to all the old guys, by the way, man. The old guys showed up on this, or just overall, I feel like this event. The old guys showed up. Diego Sanchez defeating Craig White. Just out-grappled him, wrestled him to death. It was sort of a vintage Diego Sanchez-like performance where he just had top-heavy position consistently, good ground and pound. Tried to lock up submissions here and there, just couldn't get it going. But fantastic, performance from Diego Sanchez, who really needed this win, even though he probably should still retire. Let's be completely honest. Same with Jim Miller. Like I would, in a perfect world, Jim Miller and Diego Sanchez retire to six-figure jobs still within the sport and don't have to worry about working a day in their life. In this sense, like don't have to worry about fighting a day in their life. That honestly, the amount of fights they put on, the amount of fight of the years they respectively have together, insane. Next fight on the preliminary card on FX, Darren Stewart defeating Charles Byrd via vicious TKO via elbow and punches. It was sort of a slow fight at first. Both guys were just really cautious of the other. And then Darren Stewart was able to catch Charles Byrd on the exit, hurt him, and just did not let up. Fantastic knockout. And then it led into a night of insane stuff. Jeff Neal defeating Frank Camacho. Wow. Jeff Neal may be a new welterweight, not necessarily contender, but definitely prospect. His boxing was crisp, fundamental. His left hand was landing at will. Fantastic stuff. And then the head kick KO at the end. God. Just fantastic stuff there from Jeff Neal. Definitely a breakout performance from him. Cannot wait to see what is next for him. Aljamain Sterling defeating Cody Stamann via submission knee bar. I know it's called something else. Luke Thomas referred to it as something. I forgot what it was called, but I'm just going to refer to it as a knee bar. It's a specific type of knee bar that was only done once before in UFC history. Aljamain Sterling is one of two guys to pull it off on this card against Cody Stamann. And again, this was sort of that prime Aljamain Sterling in a sense, even though I would say he's not past his prime, but there was a point where I think a lot of people got off the Aljamain Sterling hype train as he was a top prospect, and then he seemed to be this real athletic talent that didn't have the connective tissue of skills to have a complete game. So he had really big holes in his arsenal, whether it be striking and grappling. He had holes there. Guys were able to exploit him for that. That was not the case here. Cody Stamann, a guy that I thought was going to give him some trouble, just did not. Aljamain Sterling was able just to out-grapple him consistently and was just the better fighter. Locked up that insane knee bar and actually blew out Cody Stamann's knee in the process viciously. So, again, salute to Aljamain Sterling. Fantastic performance and a guy that I've sort of counted out in the past. Good to see him sort of bounce back to form. Tatiana Suarez defeating Carla Esparza. Again, in a night of breakout performances, another breakout performance. Tatiana Suarez, even though she has always been a highly touted, undefeated prospect and contender, has faced injury after injury after injury, and honestly should have 3 more UFC fights by this time, and probably should have fought for a UFC title if it wasn't for the injuries. Obviously defeating former UFC strawweight champion Carla Esparza, dominating her on the ground, beating her up, finally getting the TKO via punches and elbows and ground and pound basically in the third round after the ref waved it off via mercy stoppage. Tatiana Suarez, if it wasn't for obviously a fight we're going to talk about later in the card, would have had another breakout performance and possibly have the fight to make her a contender at this division for Rose Namajunas. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and we're going to get to it later. Abdul Razak Rahasan defeating Nika Price again, stitching back to the topic of African combat sports and the rise of it. Abdul Razak Hassan from Ghana coming out here, defeating Nico Price via vicious KO. God, it was a thing of beauty. It was just pieced him up along the cage. Landed a right hand that was glancing over the temple. Obviously dazed Nico Price, and then he came back with a left hook, another right hand that really put the nails in the coffin for Nico Price, who was on a run, unfortunately. But Abdul Razak Hassan, all of a sudden becoming a force in the welterweight division, which is having a lot of great names on the card. Cannot wait to see how that all shapes up. Jimmy Rivera versus John Dodson. Jimmy Rivera having a clinical performance against John Dodson. Clinical maybe too nice. Like, it was a decent performance where neither guy really wanted to engage, in my opinion. So it was kind of a boring, kind of a lackluster affair in the long run of exciting fights we've had. But it's okay. It gets made up for by Zabit Magomed Shaparov defeating Brandon Davis via submission. Again, with the same specific knee bar as Aljamain Sterling. Now one of 3 men to pull it off in the UFC history. Fantastic stuff. Magomed Shaparov, definitely a guy that is a contender at featherweight. He may not have the win against that name yet to make him a contender, but he has the wrestling, he has the grappling, he has obviously the striking to go along with it. That guy's a force in that division. And calling out Chad Mendes, I actually really love that fight. So Chad Mendes versus Zabit Magomed Shaparov, give me that right now. Fantastic fight. Jessica Andrade, the co-main event against Carolina Kowalkiewicz, defeating her via vicious KO, one-punch knockout in the first round, and really cementing herself as the number 1 contender for Rose Namajunas. There's not much else to say other than fantastic performance, man. Salute to Jessica Andrade. I kind of predicted that this would happen. Kowalkiewicz is a fighter that needs to have distance. She does not do well in the mid-range or on the inside, and that's Andrade's real house. That's where she excels at. And I didn't think Kowalkiewicz, who is notoriously a slow starter, doesn't really have the volume, would be able to keep Andrade off of her. So Andrade, from the get-go, was on top of her, landing hard bombs, hurting her from basically the opening bell, and finishing her within 2 minutes. Fantastic performance. And obviously in the main event, Tyron Woodley defeating Darren Till via Darce choke submission in the second round. I felt like I called this one perfectly. Tyron Woodley, again, showing that his athleticism and skill is just unparalleled. And on top of that, really the game plan behind what he does. It's so hard to see sometimes the method behind the madness that is what is Tyron Woodley doing in there, but there is a method to it. Getting his opponent, Darren Till, a guy that wants to get you along the cage to work his offense, Tyron Woodley knew exactly what to do, which is what he naturally does. Walk back to the cage, let him get comfortable, let his guard down where Darren Till really doesn't have a good guard to begin with, and land that right hand, hurt him, which he did, dropped him, vicious ground and pound, then locked up the Darce choke in the second round. But on top of that, similar to the Shawn Porter fight, which I talked about earlier, and stitching back to that idea and that thread, Tyron Woodley knew exactly where he needed to be in this fight. He needed to be either completely outside of Darren Till's range or completely on the inside and smother his work. Darren Till is a guy that needs to be in the mid-range to get his pace going, get his rhythm going. And to be honest, Woodley just knew that all you need to do is just to stay outside his range, explode on the inside, tie him up, look for takedowns, rough him up a little bit, which is what he did. From the get-go, he did that. He landed a good right hand from the opening bell, landed a good Muay Thai knee, tried to lock up a takedown, didn't land the takedown, but that entire sequence, and to go back and watch the fight, the first 30 seconds of the fight, is basically all he needed to do. He showed the entire game plan in that first 30 seconds. And Darren Till had no idea how to deal with that. He had no tools to deal with what Tyron Woodley was bringing. On top of that, I knew the wrestling was going to be a huge factor. Darren Till has never faced a wrestler of Tyron Woodley's skill, has actually struggled with guys who have taken him down. Woodley is a credentialed collegiate wrestler who has phenomenal MMA wrestling on top of that. Insanely strong, and also great top game positioning. His sense of, placement, whether it be hand placement, hip placement, whatever it be, is perfect. It really is. And obviously him getting his black belt after the fight is proof of that. He is a phenomenal grappler. And obviously the discussion should now be really, where is Tyron Woodley all time? Not only in his division, but just all time, period. I think it's time we need to start having that conversation. Obviously, the Colby Covington fight is being built up already. Colby Covington's on the Ariel Helwani show today talking about how he represents MAGA and Donald Trump. And Woodley represents all the liberals. Sure, man. Okay. Man, I just hope Colby Covington gets his ass kicked. That's all I hope for. But, again, fantastic performance from Tyron Woodley. Great fights up and down the card. Not much really else to talk about on this show. So, again, if you want to talk about these fights, call in 323-870-4051 as I wrap up these topics. Nico Montano obviously was stripped of her belt. I did not know if this was confirmed on Friday's show or if she was just off the card at that point. But she is officially stripped. She says that she found out via Instagram, which is just a long-running, I think, joke in MMA. It's how often fighters find out news about themselves on Instagram and social media. But Nico Montana losing out on $300,000. Her Reebok sponsorship now going from $40,000 per fight to $3,000 a fight. It's just really downright disrespectful, in my opinion. And on top of that, when it was the UFC who made her go to the doctor. The UFC's doctor said, hey, we're going to take you to the ER right now. Your kidneys are failing. We need to go right now. And therefore, their excuse was, oh, well, she didn't make weight. She never weighed in. And there's a clear double standard and hypocrisy for Nico Montana compared to people like Max Holloway. Just clearly is, in my opinion. And if you don't agree with that, fine. Agree or disagree. We probably won't agree on a lot of things then. Okay? Because there is clearly a double standard there that I feel like it's obvious. Like, do I really need to spell it out for people? I don't, right? Okay. Dwayne saying fans need to give Woodley more respect. I agree. The great thing is I think the media really respects Woodley. That's helpful. I really think that's helpful. The media, I think, is on Woodley's side. Because MMA media is actually pretty good about being adversarial to the UFC. Unlike, let's say, boxing media to boxing promoters and networks. We don't really have that dynamic here. But yeah, that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you could call in, but we're going to head out of here. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. Fantastic fights this weekend. Fantastic fights. From Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia, which I know some people maybe don't think is the greatest fight. Oh, 205 caller calling in. I'll go to him. I'll be nice. I'll be generous. 205. Who's this?
Hello?
Yes, 205. Who's this?
Oh, yeah, my name is Darius from Alabama.
What was that?
My name is Darius. I'm from Alabama.
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but can you repeat your name again? I did not catch your name.
Darius.
Darius. Thank you. From Alabama. What's up, Darius?
What's up, man? It's my first time calling. I've listened to you for a while, though.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I first heard you on Dante's Boxing. I think you was a guest on there.
I was never a guest on Dante's. I might have been interviewed by Dante.
Interview, yeah. It could have been that interview. Yeah. And then I looked for you, and I saw you on what is it? Oh, I can't think of it. Boxing Voice. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I just kept going on with you.
I appreciate it, man.
But
I appreciate it.
Back to no problem. Back to the fights, though. I just feel like with Tyron Woodley, And with the UFC, he is getting the most disrespected champion of all time. They sit here and had a backup for his fight, but you don't have a backup for the title fight before that?
Yes.
The two girls?
Of course. Yeah, you're right. And it's so obvious. The thing is that, like, there's no, like, hiding around it. Like, there's no counter-argument to it. Like, it's clear that Dana White does not like Tyron Woodley. He has said he does not like Tyron Woodley.
And then I feel like for Kobe, I think Kobe should fight the backup guy. And the backup guy, the winner of that two fight, should fight Tyron next.
I don't need that because I'm hyped off of the Colby Covington fight. Like, that is our Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling. That is the future of, like, the human race versus racism, bigotry, and bullshit. So I'm hyped for it. I'm good with it, to be honest.
Yeah, true. I feel you on that. True.
Any other points, Darius?
And then with the whole Garcia and Porter, you know, it's old. I just feel like Garcia, he let me down. He just didn't do enough.
Yeah.
He really let. I think he let a lot of people down.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I gotta say.
Well, thank you, Darius, for your call.
No problem.
Definitely calling again. Always appreciate new callers, and glad that you've been listening for a while. Man, that's good. Curious about where you heard me from before TBV. It's Dante. I don't think I was ever on Dante, though I've met him a few times. Very nice guy. I don't think I was never on a show. The only other podcast I did was Lukey's podcast and the Boxing Coalition. And those were only like one-offs. I did like guest appearances when I was working for TBV back then. But anyways, digressing. Thank you for calling in, Darius. Thank you for calling in, Santiago as well, and Gary from Dallas, man. Man, salute. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the show. And I agree with Darius, man. It is Tyron Woodley is the most disrespected UFC champ, arguably in history, and I would probably make that argument. Who else? By the UFC, I mean, maybe like a Jermaine Duraname, but that's such an isolated, like, short period of time. Woodley's been a while now, where we have a long case study of Dana White saying just awful shit about his champion. Literally trying to set up great white hypes to beat him again and again and again. Man, it's funny. It's just, again, I don't think I need to spell it out for people. I think people are smart enough to sort of pick up on what it is. Again, I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. You can find me at Matt Hunter, MCR, all platforms. Mixed Comment Radio, all platforms. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. If you listen on podcasts, leave a motherfucking review, okay? That's all I gotta say. Just leave a motherfucking review. Do it. Right now. Stop listening. Go drop that review on iTunes. Tomorrow I'm going to read some new ones. What else? Tomorrow, obviously, more news about boxing, MMA, everything else. I'm going to talk about the HBO card because I have not seen that yet. And Santiago saying, here, that makes me see Woodley as the UFC Jack Johnson. There is definitely, obviously, there's not a direct analog from Woodley to a Jack Johnson or Joe Louis, but it is those guys. There is commonality between Tyron Woodley now in the UFC and Jack Johnson, Joe Louis in boxing. And honestly, the timeline of both, let's say, boxing from the 1880s to the 1940s, right? And let's say the UFC and MMA as a whole from the late 80s, early 90s to now, it parallels each other. It does. Boxing and MMA started out as mainly a white sport. It did. And through time, that changes. You know, through time, communities get more diverse. Like, that's just what happens. Jay saying, I'm late. No, I want to talk my shit. Matt, please, brother. Jay, if you want to call in, I'll be nice, Jay. If you want to call in, call in. I'm going to let the outro play a little bit more. 323-870-4051. Or if you are international, email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com, Jay. I can get you an international call-in link, absolutely free. And that link is permanent. So I mean, listening out there right now that are international and have that link and want to call in, you can at any time. It's okay. It's there. And also, just so you know, there's a little perk, by the way, for the international listeners. That link is like live and open to whatever I'm playing on my computer, like an hour before the show. So DJ Maddie Be Good definitely hits up the studio an hour before the event and has some good time, play some tunes. So just saying, that's awesome. You should probably want to do that. Liam Nicholson saying Colby would smoke Ty Quill. Hey, Liam, I want that smoke. I want that smoke. Call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. Otherwise, get your little bigoted ass out of here. Let me go and check the international line. Let's make sure that Jay is not trying to use that one, because that would probably mean that he can't get in right now. Anyways, Jay saying, fuck, I'm in Toronto. Saying, I'll call in next show for sure. Okay, Jay. It's okay. It's okay, Jay. Call in next show. We can talk about anything. We can retread any of this stuff that we talked about before. It is no big deal. Everyone have a great day. Peace.